Hey everybody. Working on the bust today. Let me get out. There we go. Excellent. Alright, well, while I don't have many people, I'm going to do boring things. Base coating. Get out all my appropriate colors. Aho! People pop into chat. Poof! Here, I thought I was all alone. I'd get away with some sneaky base coating, but no, here you are. Hey everybody. Hey Image. Hey Chibi. How's it going? Hooray for boring. No sneaky. You should be painting along. Declearment. Yeah, well, if you've got to do it. I honestly, David thought, Declearment, I thought I would just quick block in some of the rest of the stuff on here. Also double check that there are no mold lines on these arms before I, in the appropriate angle. Like, the mold line on the interior of the arm here, I don't so much mind. Just want to make sure that my external arm is correct. And I really need to paint. I just really need to. These are now annoying me. The hand and the arm are now annoying me because they are not ready to be connected. So, but today, folks, I actually should. Although I can do a quick base on that, I actually need to work on this cord around her waist. And we decided Declearment is the one who's working along with me on this one as a personal project, and we decided we wanted these cords to go white instead of dark, just to go along with the cord around the waist. So I'm going to be kind of doing that. I think I'm going to be highlighting some red, because although I brought the satin around the neck up to just the fresh blood color that we were using, I didn't highlight it further, and I think I want to. I think I'm going to work on a lot of red today. A lot of red and the white cords. So, get out. When you are working on a project with very specific colors to it that you don't normally use. Oh, and I just realized I don't have paint water. Well, I need to go fetch that. There's the first blorf. The first blorf is that I need to check my paint water. But, guys, when you're working on a project with different colors than you normally use, because we all get in color ruts, right? But then sometimes we get into, hey, these are colors I don't normally use. Things like golden skin and rich indigo and fresh blood and Akata blue, I make a little baggie for each project, and that way, because I know I'm not going to miss these colors otherwise, because I don't normally use them, and I just store the colors that I'm using for the specific project in there, and that way I always have them close to hand. They live right next to my drawer of frequently used colors, so I can just grab that bag, and I've instantly got all of the colors that are in the project that I may not normally have out. So hey everybody. Hi Coobs. Yes. Here, let me grab my paint water, because I did forget my paint water, which is just highly annoying. I refilled it and everything, and then I forgot it. There we go. Alright, Kiri. Time to settle down for a nap. Poor Kiri. She's been having a rough 24 hours. We had another explosion after the stream. Old dog with old butt. Alright. And I had to kick David out of the office. Because he's actually on a call. So I had to flash him with a sticky note saying stream in 2 minutes, so he could take his meeting with his manager out there, since you guys don't need to hear the interior sordid details of Google. A very small department of Google. I don't know how, actually, every department of Google is probably big, right? Compared to what I'm used to. Yeah, I just like it, Chibi, especially with this model, because it really does use a lot of different colors. It uses some colors that I use regularly, right? Because there's definitely some walnut and black and brown in here. But the choice to go with the fresh blood, I think I was just looking for a saturated red that was just knocked down just a little bit, and fresh blood is pretty good for that, but it's still nice and intense, and it has a good transparency to it. But still has a little better coverage than clear red, for example. So we were kind of looking at that. Oh, you guys can see the back. We were working on the back this week. So we're starting to do the white. Bringing in some white on the clouds. So that's nice. It's looking pretty. It looks pretty behind her. Let's see here. Get in there. And then slot in, and then So it really adds that Asian feel. Especially the white. I like, by the way, Declearman, I like the white on the cloud choice because it really does make her hair stand out a lot more to raise up that color lighter. Um, so I actually do like that a lot. And then you get to see more of it, of course. So she's actually tilted out. She's lunging forward, drawing her sword. So she actually tilts out quite a bit. So you do get to see the backdrop if you tilt the model. So yeah, this is a very cool model. I don't usually say this, but I would paint this model again. And there are very few models in the world that I can say that about. Like usually when I paint something, I'm very much of the school of I can learn only so much from each model. And in general, I find that to be true. But in this particular model, it's so well sculpted that I think I would enjoy painting it again with a different design, different color scheme. So who knows? Big Child, I just never know if their stuff's going to be in or out of accessibility. So, key colors. And this is another weird... There's so many odd things about this color scheme. Let me grab I need my indigo. Indigo, where'd I put you? Oh no, I misplaced it. Well, I'll find it in a moment. But there's just this is such an unusual color scheme. There it is. Such a very unusual color scheme. I do not normally go with something like this. And it actually violates a little bit of the color theory rules, too. Because Fresh Blood is an extremely saturated red, as you can see on the model. It's very bright. It's very vibrant. It's definitely red. And then the secondary color is actually Akata Blue, except that we're shading it so heavily with the rich indigo that this works, right? So the Akata Blue works because it's normally it would be too muted for the Fresh Blood, but it's really pale, and the Fresh Blood is more of a medium dark. So these things help these colors go together. So the other thing that helps, of course, is when I use the Fresh Blood and add white to it to fade it out, and then that kind of... The eye will pick up on that harmony that you're using, you know, like this pink, this really dark pink, and then, ooh, we're yellowing out. And then the red on the shoulder pad are all drawn from the same red. They're all just mixes of this. And the eye's going to catch up on that, going to catch that subconsciously. Most people looking at it. They might not realize it in their heads, but visually, it's got a harmony to it. Akata as a Pathfinder color is just beautiful. I love gray blues and blue grays, and this is just a little bit grayed out of a blue. We originally thought of using, and still have around, I think I might have used it a little bit on some highlights, Irisin blue, but this proved to be too pale. Just wasn't blue enough to give us a decisive, and it was a little bit on the green slide too. We decided we liked the Akata better. But yeah, so then you get down to Rich Indigo and Fresh Blood. These are really birds of a feather, although a little bit off from a pure primary triad, because the Rich Indigo has a lot of purple in it. So it's not just a red-blue color scheme, although it's close enough that it really is. And then if you add the tan skin, or not the tan skin, the golden skin, which is our color for Asiatic skin tones, it's our base for that. So now we've got a red, yellow, blue color scheme. You can see it and it's an odd one, right? It's off. But this is why I say that, you know, learn the rules and then learn how to break them is the rule with color theory. Hey, Lucas, thanks for following. We are here. We're talking color theory before we work on some red, and I probably will work on some white also. So this is the model we're working on today, and I was just talking about how really this is a red, yellow, blue color scheme. You can see it when I put the bottles all next to each other, but it's a very odd red, yellow, blue because the golden skin, which is the Asian skin color for Master Series Reaper paint, and then that's so kind of a little bit washed out and light, and then you get these more vibrant colors, but this isn't a straight blue, it's actually a blue with purple in it. So it's red, yellow, blue, but it's a weird red, yellow, blue. Which is cool. It's an example of the way that you can take something as simple as a red, yellow, blue color scheme, which is used a lot, and make it unique, right? And end up with something that's more unique than that. It works because of The rich indigo is actually really saturated. It's washing out a little bit on camera, but the shadows here are all rich indigo. So what we're doing is we're taking the Akata and we're shading it with this color. And what that does is, as the Akata gets a lot richer, so you get a more vibrant color than you might expect here. But the other reason this works is that it's much lighter than the fresh blood. If you've got colors that, for one reason or another, don't work as well, the best thing you can do is to push them apart light and dark wise, and also warm and cool wise. These obviously are already pushed apart on warm and cool, as the blue is much cooler than the red. But mostly it's that this is very pale, and then we introduce a shadow to it that actually is as saturated as the red. So, or very close to it. As remember, fresh blood isn't clear red, so it does have a little bit of other pigments in it that desaturates just a little. So then we can get away with the rest of this. We're also desaturating or making less bright our red by doing our shadows and our highlights. So there's very little here that will remain the pure fresh blood. So this is another way that you can work with this stuff, right? So we're shading here again with the indigo color on the back side of the shoulder pad here, real subtly. And then we're bringing up our highlights here with white. And so we're washing out the red there. So it's not nearly as intense as it is currently over here, where I still have to do highlighting and a bit of shading. So you see how much more, like, if you just put the color down and you don't highlight and shade it, it's a lot more intense, right? But then once you go over here, you can see plainly how that desaturates the color, but it's still that red, right? It's still red. So this is how highlighting and shading you can work with this stuff to twist your color scheme, to tweak it one way or another. If you're working with a really muted color scheme, and you need to punch some saturation into it because you want to use a slightly more saturated color, you can do that with your highlights and shadows. Usually you want to do it with your shadows because dark saturated colors are easy to find, and they're easy to thin, and they're easy to blend with. It's a little harder to introduce saturation with your highlights, but you can, especially on skin tones. For example, if you're bringing up a really golden highlight, say with skin tone, I could mix a more saturated yellow into the skin tone and add white for the highlights. And actually, I don't think we might have done a little bit of that. I can't remember. I think I took this mostly straight up, but we did add, I think we added chestnut gold in to make it a little more saturated. Yeah, we did. So we took this color, which is more washed out, and we added this more intense golden brown color to shift it. And at that point, then you're acting more like this. And those all look pretty saturated. So that's the sneakiness of it, right? Is adding a little bit of this in for shadows, adding this for shadows, and making this mute a little bit with highlights and shadows, and everything ends up working. So yeah, it's complex. It's the kind of thing I would think of. But this is the kind of ways, and start simply. That's why I'm like with a color theory talk the other day on Reaper. I'm gonna mix paint while I talk to you, so we don't end up just talking. But I told you guys like just some simple rules to start with on the Reaper broadcast. What, yesterday? Yesterday or Monday? Monday. And that's just, it's not that you can't break the rules. It's just that, you want to learn your fundamentals, then start playing with how to break the rules. So often when I'm troubleshooting a model for somebody, I will, suggest a tweak that kind of goes along these lines for colors. Like they'll have two colors that work okay, but if they just like brought one color a little brighter or one color a little darker or more vivid, then it would work so much better. Things like that. So I do make these suggestions. I'm just going to mix a couple of puddles of my blood red, or my fresh blood, sorry. And one of these is going to be a shadow, one of these is going to be a highlight, and one of these is going to be itself for glazes. Yeah, it's just, once you get it, once you internalize this stuff, it'll become second nature to look for this sort of thing, right? I need a big mixie brush. Big mixie brush, there you are. Excellent. So just 2 drops. It's like a 2-to-1 with the indigo and the red, and it takes it down a lot. So then we get a very muted, but still very beautiful, almost raspberry. Not quite enough purple Not quite enough purple in the blue to be truly raspberry. But still a very pretty dark red. Throw some water into it. Since I'm going to be using this for shading, I want it to be thinner. So I'm going to probably make it about 4:1, 3:1 paint to water to start with. And work with it from there. But that's a really pretty dark red. And this is where mixing becomes fun. When you're mixing these kind of weird off colors, and you're not just mixing with clear brights, but you understand that certain colors are saturated enough that you can, you know, toss them together and come up with something unique. Like, I don't think that's a color in Master Series, but it's very pretty, and I could have made it a color of Master Series when I was making the paint line. So sometimes you can get some unexpected and awesome colors by doing mixes once you get comfortable with that. All right, I want, sometimes I mix Akata Blue into my pinks if I want them to not be so warm. But since I'm going to be using these to highlight the red, I don't know that I want to do that. So there's a lot of like mixing going on here. So some of the pink here, like the pink on the tail end of her sash and the pink here on the lower part of the base are actually Akata Blue mixed into the red. And there's enough white in Akata that it creates a nice pale pink, but it's dewarms it, right? It cools it down because of the blue. So it makes it a little of a cooler pink, a little more purpley. So that you can work with this stuff and play around, and it becomes very fun to come up with kind of a fresh take on colors. And then when you're like me and you've like, you know, you're so familiar with all the colors, it's really refreshing to have mixed something that you don't have in a bottle. There we go. Grab that. Drop some water in. That is, and this is a testament to how strong fresh blood is, that I drop so much white into it and it still doesn't want to shift. But this gives me the pink that I was using mostly down here on the sash, although there was some red in there too. But I want to even that out too, because that was a quick wet blend. The bottom of the sash definitely needs to get worked on. Now, the problem with highlighting red with white, as we all know, is that you get way too pink. So, around on this model, on the shoulder pads and on the armor and a bit around the collar, I'm going to be getting away from that. And the sneaky way that you get away from that is by using pure white and just glazing over it with clear red in successive layers. It's a little more work, but it gives you kind of that cool effect, which does not at all look pink. It looks red. I learned this when this was really brought home to me when I was painting my Soldier 76 model, my Overwatch statue, because he's got all that red leather. And I'm like, no matter how, at first I struggled with it because I wanted it, I didn't want to highlight it with yellow because it was right next to yellow leather on the jacket. And then I realized I just needed to underpaint with the white and glaze with the red, and everything worked out wonderfully because then it still looks red, but it's obviously highlighted. So it's kind of a sneaky way to highlight red with white without getting pink. Let's see here. I'm going to put these guys over the side here. Probably need to put some of these paints away. I was trying earlier, but then I dragged a whole bunch of everything out as usual, and I haven't put it back. Alrighty, so let's try. I'm gonna try. So like, I don't know though if I want to do that. Yeah, why not? I'm gonna try the pink a little bit around the collar. Just a tiny bit. If I thin it down, it might not be obnoxious. But you gotta be careful with pink, right? And this is why I've got my fresh blood out too, is so that if I get too pink, I can go right over it. So on the satin of this collar, I really want just little touches of highlights. Because if this is really satin, which is what it looks like satin ribbon almost, then your highlights are going to be really, really pinpoint small. Not even take up enough room to make them look pink at all. And I don't need too many highlights because this whole neck piece is going up under the shoulder pad here. So it's going to pretty much go away from the light up here. So we don't need a lot of highlights. I'm kind of looking at the shapes here, judging where I might end up with a highlight here. And I mean, this is key really in I always call it surface control, but what I really mean is how big are your highlights in respect to the area that you're highlighting. So I tend to use very fine highlights. I tend to go very small with my highlights and very precise. And when you're trying to do something like this, like highlighting red up with white and not go, but you don't want to go pink, keeping your highlights small is really important. You can see that that does add a bit more definition when you compare it to the other side that I haven't done. So let's just do this side, and then we can look at them side by side. And I do, if I get a little bit too much or I don't like the placement of something, I can do kind of a mix between the two. I'll just do a spot mix. If I think I've lost, if I've got too much shadow somewhere, or I've lost a bit of a highlight, or there's a fold that maybe got a little overwhelmed, then I'll go back in. So I always keep this red open in the middle. In fact, I've got my shadow, my highlight, and my far highlight all mixed. So now if we do want this sash around her neck to be satin, then we do want to put some pinpoint white highlights in it as well. And I might need, I think I need a photo reference at this point, actually, guys, if we're going to do this. When you're doing silks and satins and you're trying to make them look real, it really is useful if you can look up a photo and see how, go images, and see how it looks, if you can. Let's see. Because satin has a weird way of highlighting, like really odd. I mean, it really highlights kind of like red metallic. So like that's a better picture. That's more like it, because that's actually, it's being kind of dulled down, but those are white highlights. Like if it was out, all that pink is actually white. So what you're dealing with then is on the peaks of all of the folds, you're getting that bright highlight, and you're getting then a mid-tone surrounding it generally. It's going kind of like a bell curve. Although if you shaped it along like a shoulder pad, it would reflect a lot like metal. So this is like if you folded up a bunch of gold, you would get that. It's very similar. Hey, Dogfather. So yeah, so if I'm going to make this in a satin, what I'm seeing here is that my highlights need to be kind of continuous. Like I need to have line highlights is what this is telling me. And that I do need those line highlights not to be up necessarily against the shadows. Let me look at some of the rest of this and see if I can still... Now, some of these... Yeah, so like that. So yeah, in general, your highlights are a bit away from shadows, though not always. Depends on the direction of the light, as it does with everything. So here you can see a highlight that's right up against the shadow, and that's carrying a bit of that reflective quality or that shiny quality with it. So, okay, I think I can manage this. This, of course, this ribbon is not nearly as crumpled as those satin cloth photos are. Hey, Lucas. Yeah, it really is. Whenever I have to paint something that's at all from nature, Lucas, I go for photos. I mean, Google image search is our friend, right? It's really such a boon. And the fact that we didn't have it ages ago before the internet, you know, in the old days when you had to have a book full of photos. It's just so useful. Why not use it? I especially use it when painting animals, but with this, like, I don't think I've ever painted. All right, I want that. Now I've got to kind of look at where my folds are. The other thing to remember from those photo references, though, is that they're shot in a static studio, like with under very careful lighting. It's not like they're outside where it's in natural lighting. So you kind of got to also think about that. And mostly what I'm going to be doing is going back and looking at this cloth around the neck. Let's just get real close. And I'm going to be trying to kind of tilt it and make sure that I'm highlighting the actual hills and valleys, and that I haven't gotten too close to like I haven't gotten too stylized with it, or that I want my hills and valleys in the right places. I want to make sure my shadows are in the right places. I'm really only dealing with these little 3 sections here, really. So, hey Gwen, thanks for the follow. Gwen Lula. We're doing some kind of like kind of satiny effect on this cloth around the neck here. Gwen. Hey, deadbeat artist. Oh, come on. No art. Okay, well, okay. The deadbeat artist was a stereotype even when I was in art school, so I tried hard not to be one. But welcome. I actually like work in my field, so unlike many of my probably fellow students from art school, I would be really interested in those numbers. I was saying that on stream on Reaper Miniatures the other day. It was like, I wonder sometimes how many of my art school classmates are actually working in art, right? Because I've talked to people who did go to school for art like I did, and it seems to be a rarity. It's like having a philosophy degree. Although I suppose philosophy is the sort of thing you do anywhere, right? The Calisandra. Hey, thanks for the follow. Thank you very much for the follow, everybody. I appreciate all of the follows and subs since we're brand new, since we haven't been around that long. Oh no, Kiri. Sorry, there might be a dog emergency, everybody. New guys, my dog is elderly, and sometimes she has to be rushed outside. So I just saw her kind of shift in that way she does. So I'm going to hope that she can control herself, but if I have to rush her outside, you guys will all know. Just tell any newcomers that's what we're doing. It usually takes about 5 minutes for me to rush her outside and get her taken care of. So we're going to pop that. That's looking a little crinklier. See, we're trying to hit the highlights on the peaks of all this to make it look more like satin. I'm going to be bringing it up to pure white. Right now it's just a pink or a white with a glaze over it. And I'm thinning my paint a lot. Here, let me show you guys. So the white here is, oh, well, it's pink now. But you can still see, it's really, when I scrape it against the palette, it's really see-through. See how see-through that is. So I use my paint very, very thin, especially when I'm doing fine details like this. And the key to using really thin paint is to get a brush that's got a thinner tip. The body here is very wide, but the part that I'm actually using is thin. And my other favorite brush... Oh yeah, I have to actually check my email because my my artist should have gotten back to me with the emotes. Oh yay! Well, thank you. Thanks for the gifted sub there. That's fantastic. Farting Shrimp. That's a pretty funny name. Alrighty, so yeah, so my other brush that I tend to use, you guys see how skinny it is. That is a very skinny brush. Hey, Lord Zyfurious, thanks for the follow. Lots of follows, all in a row. Nice. So yeah, so when you're working with paint that's really, really thinned down with water, it helps to have a thinner brush and to use only a little paint on your brush. So let me use this is my Da Vinci Maestro. I like Da Vinci a lot. This is actually my 0, and it's a different one. It's a 35, so it's actually a very long liner brush. I like Da Vinci and I like Raphael for brushes. These are all like natural sables. Yeah, super. Well, I could still use this. This is pretty good. All right, so then when you do load your brush, load it up only a little, and then kind of dab a lot of the paint off of it so that you can control it. Because otherwise, if you thin your paint a lot, and then you don't unload your brush before you try, or you try with a bigger brush, it's going to go everywhere, right? It's like using a wash at that point. I think I want just a little bit. I don't want to go up to pure white yet. So let's see, make sure I'm on camera. And let's just highlight kind of the peaks. Some of these peaks. And I don't even need, on such small surfaces, I don't even really need to blend it. What's most important is that you nail the placement. So now we got that going on, and I got to get this one up here. And at any time, if I feel I'm losing it or I don't quite have it the way I want it, I can come back and just glaze with some red. Or if I feel like I want it more subtle, because I didn't really blend that one really well, I just kind of blobbed it on to get my placements right. So I can take a little bit of my fresh blood and thin it way down to where it's colored water. Maybe even a little more than that. Really colored water. There we go. And if I just paint that over what I just did, it's going to blend them in a bit. And then if I feel like I need to pop them even more, then I can go back in. But I've essentially, I've gone over and kind of dulled it down without losing it entirely. And in this way, you can build up highlights if you want to work it that way. So we'll wait for that to dry. That was a little strong. It's amazing how strong red can be when you glaze with it. It's so easy to overpower any highlights that you did. Oh yeah, sure. Alrighty, so if you are loading and unloading your brush. Now, if you were using thin paint, it is usually going to dry around the edge. But if you have a wet edge, don't unload against that. So I usually am doing this. Actually, okay, let's start from stage 1. When you're using a thin brush, it helps when you get your brush all clean and it's full of water to just squeeze the water out of it. I don't use a paper towel or anything absorbent. I want a little bit of moisture left here. It's going to keep my paint wet in my brush for a bit longer so that it doesn't start to get gummy. Then I'm going to dip my brush in there. Then I'm going to just gently wipe off. And you can see I'm making little dabs as I go, right? And this is all dry, so I can dab off against this and that and that. You want to get this to the point where you can do little precise details. I usually just test it if I feel like I have to. I usually know when my brush is like coming to a razor tip like that, I know I'm good. And then I can apply the paint to the figure. So, because then I can just like draw little tiny, like do little tiny dabs and strokes and have complete control over my brush. And hopefully leaving some moisture in the body of the brush will let this stay wet longer. But I just had problems taking some of my paint off my brush right there. What this means is that I actually don't have enough water in this white for this to be using this kind of brush. So I'm going to drop in more water. Even though you can see how watery it is, and it may seem amazing that this is not enough water, but it is not enough water. Pure white, you can thin it so far before you start to lose coverage. At least if you've got a good high quality white. This is Reaper Master Series Pure White, so it is a super high quality white. Yeah, sure, Rubicon, no problem. Just make sure you got very little on the brush. Oh, good. Thanks, Gwen. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, Giggling Geekhead is awesome. She's been hosting us. I really appreciate it. I actually need to get over to her stream and give her a big thanks. She's fantastic. Alrighty, so now we've got even thinner white. And the even thinner white will make it even more subtle highlight. It won't be nearly as bold. I've got to refine that tip a little bit. There it is. Alright, so I kind of wiped out my previous highlight. I'm going to try to just kind of look at how my shapes are going. Oh, yep, not enough. So not enough paint or not enough water. You guys would be shocked. Like, a pure white I can thin down probably two. I probably do 1 to 2 paint to water more often than you'd believe. Squeeze out my water, grab my paint. There we go. That looks a lot more like what I like to do. If it looks like if it's leaving puddles, then you haven't unloaded it enough. You really need to be able to do a stroke without seeing a puddle. So, because that's going to let you hit all these little details. So let's try this. Oh yes, that white is definitely, and keep in mind I just dumped a whole bunch of water into this and it's still making a really nice bright highlight. That is the beauty of pure white. It is so highly pigmented. And it has such a nice body that you can thin it down like this and you can still use it. You can use it for all of those fine highlights that you want to do. As long as you've got a brush that's up to the task. And you may not feel like you can, you should spend money on an expensive brush. And really the decision point there is, do you take good care of your brushes? And I don't mean you have to like pamper them like little lap dogs. I just mean you have to leave them not sitting in your paint water. Rinse them fairly frequently. Don't let paint dry in their bristles. And, and usually when I'm not using mine, if I'm putting them in a case or something, I'll put the little plastic tubule back on the top to protect them. But usually the ones that live out on my desk all the time aren't really getting smushed up against anything. So I don't even put anything on them. And I actually don't use brush soap. So like you don't need to be doing a lot to care for your brushes. So we've got some bright highlights there. I'm still not totally happy with that. I'm going to grab some pink, actually. I feel like we've got little pinpoints, but we don't have... Hey, Wariana, thanks for the follow. I feel like we've got, like, pinpoints, but we don't have any blending. And that's hard to do anyway on this small of a surface, the blends. So I just am trying to grab some pink and kind of interrupt the red a little bit. Use little brush strokes to make it a little more irregular. And try to make it a little softer. It's not bad. It needs more. It's getting there though. See that now? Are you starting to see kind of like that? It's catching the light. That's starting to look a little more realistic. I'm starting to like that a bit more. I don't want to make it too punchy because I don't want the eye to just go there and stay. When you're doing really sharp, small highlights, it can be a lot like doing freehand, where that sort of sharp edging attracts the eye. Like the human eye loves to see that sort of contrast, and it will just burrow into it and just stick on it. And so when you're trying to figure out like the most important part of the model, and say you still want people to look at the model's face, then you have to kind of question how much detailing you pump in onto the rest of the model. You can get away with a lot if the detailing is right up next to the face. So like this shoulder pad, not bad actually, because even though the detail is really tight, and that's sculpted on there by the way, even though the detail is really tight, it goes right up to her face. So if you're staring at this, the next thing you're going to look at is her expression. So, and technically this model could be either a female or a male. I just, for some reason she looks feminine to me. So, and maybe it's the hair. But, so I've decided she's a she, but you could paint him, her either way. I don't even know what sort of drawn, like, they tend to do female figures, so I kind of assumed she was a female, but you could totally paint this as a young man as well. Alrighty, so we got, yeah, I like that. Okay, we'll go over to the other side and do it over there. I just decided I needed more highlights around the neck. I was like, there are so many points on this figure where I could put another 40 hours into it. It's such a nice model, and it's just such a nice sculpt that there's some models like this where you just keep looking and you keep seeing things that you could highlight or accentuate or just bring out an extra detail on, and you could just get sunk in doing extra work on it if you really wanted to. And since this is a coaching project, so technically this counts as a project for me. Like whether I finish it or not is purely up to me. So I'm inclined to say that I will definitely be spending a lot of time on this one. Even after I've finished using it for coaching and it's more or less done, I may put even more extra work into it because I really do like her, and I like that she's a different color scheme for me. Like she definitely uses colors that are not in my standard pool, so not in my color rut that I've gotten into. It's nice to get outside your color rut sometimes. Decide to pick up a little bit. If it was really satin, it wouldn't have that big dark shadow there. It'd probably have a little bit more light coming in, so just bringing in a little bit there. Grab a little bit of the white, and I'm not using pure white. I'm really grabbing my pure white while I still have a little bit of pink in my brush, to just kind of tone it down just a little bit. So we're slowly bringing it up like we brought it up on the other side. Yeah, all the other busts in the series are female. That's why I kind of thought she was a girl. But David pointed out to me that she could easily be a he, given, the design of the breastplate and everything. So, hello, Scrying Eye. Good to see ya. Yeah. So yeah, red satin, not too bad. I mean, again, I'll have to kind of mess with it a little bit. I'm sure there are little things that I could do. And when you're working on something this small, these little tiny details, it's like there's such the tiniest little change can make it look better or worse. So it's just like sometimes you're just futzing. You're futzing. The difference between a good level tabletop model for me and a competition winner is like how much futzing I'm gonna do. How much little course correction do I do? How much time do I spend like troubleshooting and saying, well, this isn't quite the way I wanted it? I mean, some of it is obviously the choice of model. I'm going to choose a competition model that has a lot of potential for me to do the things I'm best at. This would be a pretty good competition model for me, though. She has room to do freehand. She has room to do fine detail. She's got room to do nice skin tones and dramatic shading and non-metallic metal. The pose is great. The sculpt is great. You know, you really can't go wrong with Big Child, in my opinion. I never have a low-quality product from them. That's why I went in for their latest Kickstarter. And I'm super excited about it. But I'm kind of glad that it's not going to ship for a good while yet because I have enough to work on. Yeah, just going to hit a little bit of a highlight up there. So that's coming along. That's looking... I'm much happier now with that neck. Like, it still needs refinement. Like, there are areas where I really have to... I've never painted satin before, so I'm going to have to kind of figure out, like, there are a couple places where I'm sure I'm doing it slightly wrong that I need to look at. I may need to actually acquire some satin so I can drape it the way that I want it and look at how the light falls on it. That would be the ultimate, right? I have a fabric collection. I use it entirely as resources for miniature painting. Liquid Nebula, it's got to be a mini that allows me... I usually like a simple, clean sculpt. I don't like too much complexity. I want complexity in the paint job. If I'm doing a competition like Games Workshop, like Golden Demon or Privateer Press, where they're really obvious, a lot of the time they're looking for conversion pieces. Like, when you're dealing with a gaming competition... like in Golden Demon, when I worked at Games Workshop, I had them kind of explain it to me. By the time your model, you know, a lot of people will paint the newest thing when it comes to Golden Demons. At least in the old days they did. And the problem is that by the time that model got to Golden Demon, the employees who were looking at that model had already seen it like nonstop for 6 months before it was released. And so they'd gotten bored with it. And the judges, who usually were like the Perrybrook twins, you know, the sculptors and people like Jess Goodwin, and, you know, they've been staring at these models for years. So that's kind of how it got where you wanted to convert for Golden Demon, because you were dealing with those judges and that kind of mentality where they, like, if you converted something even a little, even switched the arm position just a little, it'd be a new silhouette, and that would attract the eye of the judges just a little bit more. You still had to do a kick butt paint job, but that's how that got to be a thing. So for like GD, I'm always looking at what kind of conversion can I do to make this an entirely new model that will make the judges stop and go, hey, wait, that's not the standard, you know, XYZ piece. Or can I add like a banner to it? You know, something like that, something that changes the characteristic of the model. So the other thing for competition, obviously freehand, crazy freehand is one of my specialties. And so I am always looking for a competition model that allows me to do some crazy freehand. I'm trying to think about, yeah, it's a little bit different on this one that I'm looking at now. You guys have all seen this, the Templar bust that I'm going to be working on next for competition. So she attracted me because she's got, I also feel I'm good at skin tones, and she's got a great face with a great sculpt. Her hair is sculpted really well too. But what really attracted me is all this metal. So I can do some really, when you're doing like Sky Earth metallics and something metal on something this detailed, I really feel like it falls more into freehand than it falls into like any other category in a weird way. Because you're detailing all these tiny little areas and you're trying to make them all stand out. Yeah, Golden Demon does require it to be Games Workshop models, Matthephile. And same with Privateer Press Grandmaster. It's got to be a Privateer Press model. Yeah, this model's so good.
Or scratch.
Or a scratch build, yeah. And then, you know, the other thing I really love to do is texture. So I could do some freehand on the cloth here. And she's also got a cape, a half cape on her back. So that allows for some crazy freehand. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do. It's going to be a lot more complicated than this. Hey, Xtab. And then there's this great leather texture that you can do on the gloves that this painter... This is actually painted by the sculptor. This version of the model is actually painted by the sculptor, and it's my fave. So this model I chose for all those reasons. So it's got textures, it's got a great face, it's got room for freehand, plus I've got all this non-metallic metal. I can do reflected colors and all sorts of crazy stuff. So all the things that make me happy. But usually, like, well, you guys know my Sacrifice mini. She's out in the other room.
No, want me to get her?
Can you fetch her?
Sure.
My beloved man is going to fetch Sacrifice, which was, you know, my other mini that I did for Crystal Brush, my only Crystal Brush entry. I had never entered Crystal Brush, and when I finally got around to entering my first model, it was their last year, although I hear they're going to bring it back. So we'll get Sacrifice out and show her to you, and you will see right away what I mean.
You might need to...
I'll just put my thumb. Yeah, she's naked on the bottom, but I'll put my thumb over it. So this is from Black Sun Miniatures, and this was my this was my Crystal Brush entry. So we are carefully hiding the nudity, but if we get really close, and then we get really focused, you guys can see all the fine work. You can see she's got actual Damascus on her dagger, which drove me nuts, and I repainted it like 4 times. Crystal Brush used to be CMON, but then they kind of were sliding away from it because they were going more toward board games, and so they ended up kind of canceling it. And then Golden Demon was going to take their slot at Adepticon, their area, to do GD. But now I hear that maybe Crystal Brush is going to bring it back. But yeah, so this is from Black Sun. It's called Sacrifice. As you can see, it's a nice, simple model, but it has opportunities, right? It gives me time. It gives me the suede texture on the gloves, which is really hard to see, even when zoomed in. I wonder how far I can zoom in. And can I get that fine? Yeah, I can. There you go. This is a good camera. So how far?
Also post a link to the Crystal Brush photos.
Yeah, the Crystal Brush photos are also really good. That's true. But yeah, all that, the cloth is freehand. Yes, you are absolutely. Yeah, this is me like painting when I know I'm going up against like some of the best painters in the world. So I'm trying to push myself. I'm trying to get crazy insane. The back gets even more so. So now you can see, and actually those of you who are on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig, can see how I did this. But all of this cloth texture is also all freehand, and all of the stitching and embroidery is freehand. So that's the sort of thing. And of course I also got to play with colors, right? Because I'm highlighting my purples with like yellow. I'm shading them with almost a bluish purple. I'm doing all that stuff as well. But I've always wanted to do a crazy embroidery thing. So, oh yeah, thanks for the exclamation point Patreon. Hopefully bot actually works. Yeah, the freehand was the longest part of the model, Rubicon. Yep. Like I pretty much painted all the skin and all the front and everything, and except for everything except for the dagger, and then I just spent like hours and hours and hours doing the embroidery. So yeah. And this is all based on Moorish architecture patterns. And if you actually, the crazy thing is right here, you can't even see it in scale. So watch how big my finger is. That's how tiny all those brush strokes are. That she's actually a very small model. If you look at her next to this one, hold on, let me zoom out. And then you put them like right at the same level. Like you can see how much smaller she is. So she's like a 1/12, maybe even a little bit littler. I would guess that Sacrifice took me about 70 hours. I don't know. That's a hard one, Image. I'd have to look at I have actual date stamps, but of course I wasn't working on her necessarily every day, every night. I was taking a lot of work in progress shots when I did it. And if you're on my Patreon, at the beginning of my Patreon from 2019, like in those starting months, you'll see that I actually do a video on mapping out this freehand. And then in pictures afterwards, I show, I think I did this panel on there. And then afterward in pictures, I show how I adjust it. So I did that. And then I also did a video on my Patreon on how I did the cloth texture on this. So. Uh-oh, we have too many links. Oh, sorry for the link block. Sorry, guys. David pointed out that I had my bot set to not allow links. I'm gonna stop that, but I have to get on Twitch, or I get on my Nightbot and do that. Actually, tell you what, you have now reminded me 2 things. 1, make my boyfriend a mod, because he was kind of sad that I hadn't. Make David a mod. And allow links. Yeah, so I'm very sorry about that, guys. Nightbot had some defaults, and at the time I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. And so it is now occurred to me that I need to tune those. The baby steps, right? Baby steps as a streamer. Trying to learn all this stuff. So there. I have my to-do list now, so we can fix that so you guys can put links up. Oh, that's fine. Zebo, you know what? What matters to me is that you're supporting me. Like, that, if you don't watch any videos, like, if you like watch one video a year, as long as you get something out of it, I'll be happy. But I mean, the important part to me is that you're helping to support me, right? You're helping me like meet my financial goals, actually afford to live here, you know, keep Kyrian dog biscuits, as I often say. Aw, thanks, Big Glitter Geek. And there's Big Glitter Geek with the sub. Awesome. Yeah, and all of you people also who are subbing me on Twitch, like, since this is so new to me, that matters a lot to me too. So thank you. Thank you. All right, well, enough sacrifice. We'll put her up next to Mr. Grumpy. Stay. There we go. She's such a pretty mini. But yeah, so I tend to like, obviously I tend to like female models. You're getting an idea of what I like now, right? I really love busts because I feel like busts allow me to do like a lot of finer work, like small, tiny details, like nice, tiny freehand, you know, there's a little bit more area. And so you have more room to do things like textures and all that stuff. Well, thank you. Thank you for the double awesome. It takes you 70 hours to do a crappy 28mm paint job. Rubicon, the more you paint, the better you get, the faster you get. I mean, it's all, it's all about, like, just getting comfortable with the techniques. Especially now. Like, when you're on my Patreon and you guys are learning these techniques, and really, many of you may be really trying really hard, like, to master them. That's going to slow you down. It absolutely will. And don't expect, you know, it to be fast. And don't worry that it's slow. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're trying to learn something new. It's going to take time. Like, just take your time and enjoy the process. Enjoy the process is so important. Enjoy that you're painting. Enjoy that you're trying something that is new to you. And don't be too hard and expect yourself to be brilliant out the gate. I mean, everybody just kind of progresses at their own rate. It's not a big deal. I will not think less of you if you take a year to figure out what blending looks like and how you can do it your way. Or even longer, you know? It's like, just chill. Just chill. Painting is about chilling. I know I got into some frustrating times when I was learning layering because I was trying to we didn't have all the videos that you have now. So I was trying to figure it out. I'm going to put some blue down here so that I can mix my color for making my chords white instead of black. But I kept making the paint too thin, and it was really frustrating to me. So I totally feel you, because I spent way too long trying to learn blending with layering. Like, way too long. Immense amounts of time. And all the time, I was just doing it wrong. I was thinning it too much, right? But there's no way for me to know that. I finally figured it out. I was like, why are my layers not showing up after I've done 16 of them? You know? And after that, I got a lot better. Like, what that did for me is it taught me to look more at my paint consistency. And to see how the paint looked in the palette before I ever put it on the model. And so that was an important part of the growth process. And that's why I say just chill and enjoy it. Hey, Superb. No thanks, I don't need any help. I will get my people to watch my streams on my own. Do not believe in services. There we go. Let's mix up this color. So the color for our bottom of our bottom layer of our white is actually Akata blue, because we're using it, remember, on the kimono. And then we're going to take a bunch of that and we're going to mix it with a tiny touch of walnut, which we're using also on this model. And that makes us a soft gray with a bluish hint. Here, let me get that in camera. There we go. This color. And this color is the color down here on the belt to do the shading. So this is the color I need. We had originally done, I think, Akata blue just for that waist. You can see it even, that's a different color for the as the braid goes around the waist. And I realized very quickly that it was way too light to give enough contrast to see the different braids. And so this is kind of a mixture, I would say, of around 6-1, I think. It's like a couple big fat brushfuls of Ikata, and then it's a little tiny dab of walnut. So in this case, I'm mixing my base for my white, and I always use a bluish gray or grayish blue usually. Almost always, sorry. But hey, Dragon Eye, how's it going? You did manage to get her eyes painted. Good, Coops. Yeah, I think I saw that. They actually look good. I think I saw that on the Discord earlier. Alright, so I'm going to take this gray, and I'm actually going to paint over what I've got up here, although I'll leave the walnut around the edges, and then I'm actually going to probably paint over the braid around her waist too. Because I want to just start with this base and just go up from there. And obviously I've got a little bit of a darker shadow here, so I've got some thinned down, like, probably additional walnut mixed in. I'm not going to worry about blending that in right now. I just want to block in my cord color. And a lot of this gets hidden behind her hands when they're coming down to pull the sword out of the scabbard. She's got a really nice, awesome katana that slots in like right around here. Yeah, so she's going to be kind of covering some of this, but you will see some of it. So you want to paint it. You don't need to, the parts that are buried under the arm, you don't need to paint to the same standard as you're painting the parts that are obvious. So, oh, okay. Yeah, she's looking good. Yeah, we're just talking, although I did highlight the satin ribbon around her neck today, Dragon Eye. Which I wasn't planning to do, but then it just said, you should paint me. And so I listened. I probably need to do the shoulder pad too, but it's a really good like comparison right now. So we'll just work on the white, which is what we originally were setting out to work on. So I'm going to get, and normally I would have this mini mounted on something. I know I'm a bad person for not having it mounted on something, but sadly, because she has her own base, and unlike other busts, which might just have a peg to come out of the bottom, so it's easy to mount her on just a working block, this one has a whole backdrop. So the problem is, if you put her on here, you cannot paint the back of the model. So really, I have to sit down and finish my cherry blossoms, and finish all the braiding, and, you know, paint all the stuff that I otherwise can't reach, but that people will be able to see if they look at the back side of the model. So she has a little bit of rub off here and there. And I'm just pretty much just going to live with it. I'm going to paint it, touch it up before I glue it onto the base. And then I won't have to worry about it. And I already have her block picked out to put the base on. I have a fancy... I have many like wooden plinths that I've gotten over the years. So I grabbed this one. I like it because the top almost looks like the cloud patterns on this. So, even though it's pretty saturated, but then again, we're dealing with saturated colors. So the front is kind of a blonde color that works really well with like her arm guard and her skin color. So, and the bronze, it works really well with the bronze breastplate too. So this will be what this is going to be mounted on. And then she'll be on top of that. So that is the plan. And hey, I get to actually use one of my fancy plinths that I've had lying around for years. Yeah, satin is, I'm still not, like, perfect happy with it, but I'm pretty happy with it. Pretty happy with it, Dragon Eye. I haven't ever done satin. I probably should try it on something that's a little bit bigger, with more folds, and less crinkles. But I'm not unhappy with it. I think it's okay. Let's see what we're doing. More gray. All the way around the model. Gotta connect that up. I do like this gray also. I might have to start using this gray on a regular basis. That's one thing that I was sad about, is some of the best of the cold grays got canceled in Master Series. For some reason, cold grays just don't seem as popular as warm grays. It's weird. It's like cold blues are not as popular as warm blues. I think it's just a human bias, with some exceptions. Yeah, she has a couple. Hold on, Tister. I'll get the whole setup. She has two hands. She actually has a really cool pose. I just wanted to finish painting that so I didn't forget it. She has... Let me see if I can get everything to line up. This is one of those where you've got two hands and a thing. You wrap the hand around the blade. So like that. And then you try to slot this in on both sides. So let's try to slot this in on this side. I could sticky tack it, but I don't want to right now. And you kind of, I'm leaving them both kind of loose right now, because when I go to actually glue this in, I want everything to be loose while I line it up. I'm going to need to do a little bit of putty work on her hand there. It's pretty loose there where it goes up into there. But, so it's like that. Nope. She actually has a whole pose. She's very active. She's lunging forward and drawing her sword. So yeah, I need to do a little bit of putty work on that. There we go. See, this is why I leave it like loose, so that I can adjust the position of the hand, and that way I can make it all work together, and then we will glue it all in and hope that it's not terrible. But yeah, her katana actually goes up under her sleeve there. It slots right in, so that's very nice and dynamic. Going to be doing more freehand on this. Was just thinking that black lacquer with maybe a flower design that's like the cherry blossoms, only bigger, would be a good motif to use. The problem with something like this is that it's sticking out so much past the model. And so you want something. You don't want it to just be a black bar or a red bar or whatever color, right? But you don't want too much attention on it either, because it's really not the point of the model, right? What it does give you the chance to do is to give some visual interest over on this side. So the highlighting that I do here and the NMM that I do here on this shoulder pad, along with the cherry blossom design that I've got extending down here, which I still have to add blossoms to, along with freehand here, makes this angle of the model more exciting. Whereas otherwise it would be very boring, right? It's the side that she's turning away on from. So adding some detail, freehand, visual interest to this side of the model is good, because then when somebody is looking at it from the side, they're not going to be totally bored. And then from the back, they are going to be totally bored because it's flat. That's where you put like something nice about. That's where you put a big Sword of Dawn in fancy letters, you know, and your artist's signature and the year that you finished it. That's what I'll be doing on that. But yeah, so that's what her whole pose looks like. She is super cool. I really do like her a lot. I like her enough to be impatient that I want to get her more done. Yeah, expect this one to show up at ReaperCon 2021. Like, she will definitely be done by then. So I will definitely bring her as an entry for that, because I like her that much. I don't know if I'm going to sell this one afterwards or not either. I haven't decided. Oh, Dark Elf, that patrons, Dark Elf goes up for sale on Friday. I'll put him up on the Patreon. I'll make a post. For those of you at the $10 and higher tier, you'll get first shot at him. If nobody wants him at $10 and higher, I'll wait a week and then I'll open it up to the rest of the Patreon. But Dark Elf is, he's an academic bust. So he's got that one popped open eye, so you can see how to paint a wide eye and paint a narrow eye. And then he's also got the tattoos and the freehand. He's got a little dragon tail on the back of him, and I signed him, and stuff like that. So I'll put him up pretty cheap. Probably a starting bid of like $100 or $125. I haven't decided. One of those. And then it'll be open bidding, and it's just in the comments of the Patreon. And that's how we'll do it. My $10 and up people get first dibs on any models I decide to put up for sale. So eventually, this one might go up for sale. It depends. I tend to keep competition models that are like firsts for me. So like I kept Sacrifice because it was the first time I'd actually pulled off that immense amount of freehand and done it to the level that I was proud of. Yes, dinner time. Okay, well, have fun and eat a tasty dinner. We're having leftovers tonight, so I don't have to work too hard, which is awesome. Yeah, they're going to be sliced and diced. Exactly, Jetta. Yeah, she should be good. So yeah, so I kept Mr. Grumpy because it was the first time that I'd done that good of a level of shaded metallics on his breastplate, and also the wolf fur. And also he was a class model where I was directly working with Kirill. So there are parts on him that I did under Kirill's close tutelage that kind of serve as reminders to me of how I did this. And as examples that are right in front of my face. It wouldn't be as good if I was looking at pictures. So in that case, I keep the model, and that's, I actually am not in the habit of keeping my models. So it's a rare thing. But lately I've been really like going up levels, I think, as a painter over the last couple years. And so I have kept a couple. This one I don't know. Although I'm utilizing a lot of my abilities on her, if she doesn't really end up like being like a first for me in some way, then I probably will put this one up for sale on my Patreon as well. Although if I put as much work into her as I think I'm going to put work into her, she's going to be up for a lot more than $100. I've been trying to do simpler models for my first sales on the Patreon to make it accessible to people, because I think that David agrees with this too. But I really think that owning some really well painted models in your collection can be a great aid to you as a painter in learning techniques and having an example right in front of you. So that's why I want to make some of my stuff that I sell on my Patreon really accessible at a lower price range. And that way people can acquire it and use it to learn. I definitely did not finish. Definitely had some rub off there, or some lack of paint adhesion. There we go. Much better. Oh, let's see here. Oh yeah, we got about a half an hour. But yeah, I really like, I really want to make, like the first model I sold on my Patreon was a little 28mm Werner Clock Holiday Special Edition that I really liked, that I'd been sitting on for ages, years. So that was a nice little one to put up. And then the elf bust is nice because he was relatively fast, but he also has great skin tones. He's got great eyes. He's got tattoo, he's got freehand. So he's a good example bust for somebody to look at too. So yeah. That kind of thing. So I think I'll probably alternate. Like when I do a piece like this, if I don't want to keep it, then I will sell it. And also if I'm, every once in a while I want to do just a simpler model and make that accessible to you guys too. So that you can, it's awesome to have a collection of miniatures that even though some of them aren't painted by you, it's really cool to have like a little art collection. So I like to encourage that too. Let's see here. I want to do the white. Let's get our white thinned down. Yes, I know I already thinned it to heck and beyond, but here it is again, thinning. And what I needed to do down here, and I didn't do, and I may go back and do on the bottom of these braids, is kind of suggest some braided texture. So one thing I need to do is mix a darker gray. I was thinking about, if this is strands of braid, like, if it's got strands like rope strands, that I might want to do some extra texture here. I haven't done it, but somewhere in the future I might want to do that. So I'm going to grab some more Akata Blue. This time I'm going to use mostly walnut and less Akata Blue, and make a dark gray out of that. That'll go with my medium light gray that I just base coated it with. I'm going to thin it way down because I really don't want it to be strong. I just want the color to be enough for me to bring out all these little bits of braid. I will not do this as a wash. I could do it as a wash, but what that would do... bless you, David. We have fires. We have forest fires. We have some smoke in the atmosphere, I think. David has been sneezing more. But yeah, so I could do this as a wash, guys, but what that would do would be to undermine the color that I've carefully chosen as my base. So that would take it much darker, and it would make it a lot more difficult. Like, I'd have to go back over it probably with the lighter gray, and then I'd have to go over that with white. For me, it's just easier to paint the shadows in where I want them and not have to paint over things. So... this might be a little harsh. Yeah, it's a little harsh. And I blorfed. Blorf. We need a new blorf emoji. I know.
I couldn't, paste in the one from Reaper for some reason.
Oh, that's okay. Trashorama made the Reaper ones, and I'm sure that I mentioned to him the other day that I was probably going to ask him if he had time to do a couple of emojis for us. Because I would like my painting big icon over here also. Thank you for the blorf. MCC War with the blorf.
Yeah, when I
When you tried to use it,
When I try and use emotes, it's letting me use emotes from a bunch of other channels, but for some reason it's not showing
not
up
the Reaper ones. Interesting. There we go. So I just want a little bit of lining in there to give me the shading that I want, just for starters, just to make all the little braids stand out. I can be a little more subtle with my shading as time goes on. But I want all of these to... And if I line all this and I feel like it's too harsh, then the easy thing to do is to actually take that paler gray that I started out with as a base coat and do just a wash of that or a glaze of that over the top of this to take these dark lines down, but we'll still keep them then. We haven't wasted the effort. We'll just make them a little more subtle. That is good. And the other thing that this type of work is really good for, by the way, is, even though it's not as fast as a wash, is in building your brush control. When you're trying to outline little regular details like this in thinned paint, keep turning the model around and make sure your brush is always at a comfortable angle so that you can help your muscles learn better how to hold a brush. Essentially, the muscle memory that you build doing this sort of repetitive motion and fine detail will essentially help you do things later like buckles and eyeballs on 28mm models. So when you've got something like this, you might be tempted to just throw a wash on it and be done, but be aware that if you line it, you are working with a technique that's going to help you in the future and help you develop your elite skills. Because it's like muscle memory and muscle memory and brush control are pretty much the same thing. Brush control is muscle memory. And then paint consistency is the other thing to master. But muscle memory comes with time, and it's why even if you never learn any new techniques, you will find that you become a better painter over time because you find that you can hit the details more easily. Yeah, I just touch it up, Rubicon. Honestly, like I said, normally with a model like this, I would have mounted her on a working block by now. Something that I could hold her on so I wouldn't rub off as much. But because she has this backdrop thing, I can't mount her on the base she's meant to go on yet because I haven't painted the back of her. So I need to finish out the back of her, and then I'll be able to mount her on this base. At that point, I'll do all my touch-ups. But yeah, I just have kind of resigned myself to having a little bit of rub-off here and there. There really isn't that much rub-off, so I'm just dealing with it. Yeah, I don't think the fires are near us. They're up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is about 15, 20 minutes from us.
Yeah, it's not that far.
Not that far, but...
But we're, in a fairly populous downtown, pretty near downtown Mountain View, so I can't imagine the fires are gonna get into town like that.
One would hope. Crossing fingers, right? Because we like where we live. We don't want it to burn down. Wow, yeah, that's thick smoke.
It's usually people in more rural areas that have fires actually come onto their property.
Yeah, we are. I have become a city mouse. I was a suburb mouse for most of my life, but currently I am a city mouse. David is trying to make me into a city mouse. He is a city mouse for sure.
I've pretty much always lived in cities. I think this is the smallest city I've actually lived in.
I like this city because it is small. It reminds me of the small cities that I have lived in. Like Madison, smaller city.
Yeah, it's only 83,000.
Yeah, much smaller than Madison.
It's part of
but it's part of the Metroplex.
Metro area. Yeah. That's 10 million or something.
Right. Yeah, San Jose and Sunnyvale and all that.
And San Francisco. And
yeah. Well, yeah, if you go up to San Francisco, then I guess we are in the Bay Area, therefore we are included in that. So yeah, it's in a greater metro area. But see, I did grow up like that because I was only, 45 minutes south of Milwaukee, downtown Milwaukee, and an hour north of Chicago. So it's like we got into outer suburbs areas pretty fast when you got on I-94 South. So
Yeah. I don't. Is that the same in that, like, here there's a continuous metropolitan area
Chicagoland
that
greater is.
basically includes all of San Francisco and Oakland and San Jose.
Chicagoland in general is. When you get closer to the Wisconsin border, then that's where it thins out. But like if I drove, I'm trying to think, let's see, if I go 94 south, how long does it take me to get into like Chicago suburbs? Probably when I'm half an hour out, that's when it really swaps over. I used to take that route all the time. I'd drive south and go visit Jennifer. And she lived way downtown. She lived near the Museum of Science and Industry by the lake. But it's been a long time since I drove that route. Blorfs. That's alright. Blorfs are okay. We can touch up Blorfs. Blorf.
Were all of the fires ignited by the thunderstorms?
Oh, was that the case? I mean, they did come on right like after that, because we had thunder and it was so weird. Because I hadn't ever heard thunder out here since I moved. The last day of rain before the very recent thunderstorm was actually the day I moved here. Like our last day driving up from Texas, we went through like solid downpour for the last 6 hours or something, maybe less, at least 4 hours.
The fires seem to have names like SCU Lightning Complex.
Huh. Interesting.
And CZU Lightning Complex.
Yeah, so maybe they were ignited by all the storm activity. That's a bummer. Now Kiri has another reason not to like thunderstorms. Because she doesn't like the smoke. Yeah, it's a little bit strong there, but I'm not going to overthink these lines. I just want to get them in there, and then I can refine them.
Well, PG&E is relieved.
Oh, because it's not them for once?
Yes.
I'm surprised they don't put up billboards on the side of the road saying, "For once, it's not us."
I don't think that would be a great ad campaign.
But it would be funny. Oh dear. That would be the kind of ad campaign that somebody who with a wonky sense of humor would put up, and then everybody would be horrified.
Yeah. That would be the kind of ad campaign that would get
It's a
whoever
meme.
started it fired.
Yes, it's a meme. I suspect the Loyalton might have started from lightning, Meave once said. That's around her. Yeah. Alright, so we're getting in our little blocks in here. That's good. So now I'll take some white. Let's see what I can do with it. I have thinned it down. Now I'm thinking I thinned it down too much. I guess we'll see. Let's see. What kind of, the question is, what kind of chord texture can I suggest? That's hard to see, but you guys can kind of see it. Sadly, the lighter things we're working on, it's harder to show. So I'm kind of looking at, can I make a little bit of texture on these braids? And it's easy to try this on the back. That way, if it doesn't work, I haven't screwed up anything on the front. And I probably want more highlight on the top. So a solid bar of highlight on the top, and then a little bit of suggestion of texture on below. And then I want to take my gray. Definitely needed to mix up more gray than I did. So mental note for next time. And so I want to be able to kind of touch up a little bit of this dark. Make it a little less dark. Just a little.
Wow, Big Basin is in the middle of one of the fires.
Oh, noes! That would make me so sad. We were at Big Basin earlier this year. It's beautiful. Good night, Jetta. Yeah, I'm gonna call it soon. I've only got about 10 minutes left, but I wanted to try doing these cord strands and see if they worked. But yeah, I know this is late for some of you guys, so for those of you in Europe. Really late. So I want to do a few of these strands, and I want to see, kind of back out and see how they look. And if it's too much, or maybe I need to take it a little more subtle. Maybe it doesn't work at all. It does let us kind of like lead this strand in to a braid to suggest that motion of that tuck under of the cloth. Like, almost maybe I should be doing it as a little S. Maybe just do 3 of them, but do them more in an arc like that. See, instead of doing straight down lines, do more like those. I kind of think that might be better. That's why it's nice to kind of like figure this out beforehand. You always kind of just pick one area of the model and kind of experiment if you're not sure. And that lets you figure out what's going to work best. Yeah, we have to start on dinner soon. I guess it's only before I need to take Curie out. But yeah, so I think maybe this like longer line with kind of the curve under, I think that's kind of the stroke that might look better. So kind of making an S shape. Tell you what I don't like with these fires. Walking in the evening is very annoying. Feeling like you're inhaling smoke. Definitely not fun. So that's hard to see because I'm zooming so far in. So you can see a little bit of the texture when you zoom out. You can still see a little bit of the texture. So when you look close, you can see the texture on that belt, which is what you want. You want it to be there, but be relatively subtle. I still think it's pretty obvious. I do want to repaint those 2 little guys and make them more like the other 2. But this is how I do this stuff, really, is I kind of block out a couple of sample patterns and I see how it looks and see if I want to change it and experiment. And then once I nail it, once I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I want it to look like, then I go through and do everything else. So that means I'll probably repaint the front of those cords. Oh, I need to paint these guys gray. But I'll need to repaint like the front of these dangly cords to have a little bit of texture on them. But yeah, so that's when I'm patterning, when I'm trying to do patterns, just kind of experiment, throw it around. You can always repaint it. If you just do it on a couple little sections, it's easy to repaint or paint over. And yeah, we got about 10 minutes left. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. And yeah, I'm going to have to paint over that entire area. So these guys I want to wipe out. Need to thicken my paint. The problem is I've thinned my paint down. Now it's not a good base coat. So I need to grab some of my thicker mix. And mix a spot color to go over that with. There we go. Then I can go back in. Lost a little bit of my shadow in the middle there. There. Excellent. So yeah, I really have to get my butt together and put cherry blossoms on all these little branches. They're very sad that they don't have cherry blossoms. Right now they're cherry trees in the winter. Alright. Now we can do our little S shapes more. And you see I'm not doing like one line necessarily. I'm doing kind of like little dashes to kind of block this in. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be 3 strands, for everyone. And the strands don't have to be like the same shape quite. You just need that kind of shape there to suggest that there's different strands woven into these cords. And once I have this blocked in, because it's very bold the way it is, right? You can see all the individual strands. It's very, very one-dimensional. It doesn't suggest volume at all. So what I may well do then is to take a shadow color and to, make sure that I'm kind of shading around these little cells to make them look like the cord has 3-dimensionality. And again, that's under the level of futzing. Like, it's like, it looks good, but I can make it look better. So how much time am I willing to put in to make it look better, right? So that's why I always said watching me work on competition pieces would be like super boring for you guys because it's so much futzing. There we go. That's nice. I like that. Yeah, I think the more diagonal S-shaped line is better to suggest the cloth like kind of tucking under and interweaving. Thanks for hanging out and keeping me company on stream today, you guys. I thought this would be a nice subject. Tomorrow I might do some base work. I've got some Targaryen models from Game of Thrones. Like old Targaryen models, like the first ever Aegon the First and his sister queens, from Jim at Darksword, and I got his permission to work on them, even though they're not released and haven't been previewed anywhere. They're pretty simple models, but George has been really excited about them, George R. R. Martin. So I thought I might do the green base work on them because they're on integral bases, but then I need to mount them on black plastic gaming bases. So, well, good, Liquid Nebula. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, futzing. Yeah, no problem, Scrying Eye. I like answering questions. It helps you get creative with your own futzing. You futz along in your head. Awesome. That's awesome. Is there anybody we should raid, guys, even though we're a little raid? Is there anybody on right now that we should pass on some viewers to? If you guys, some of you are still like looking for stuff to listen to in the background while you work on your own stuff. If anybody's got Twitch open. I don't have my, I'm just doing this through OBS, so I don't have Twitch open right now. So that's probably it's definitely getting to be the dinner hour for most of the middle US. Oh no, Blorfing. CNOT? Oh good. Yeah, I host him anyway, so I love CNOT's channel. I love watching what he does, and I also love that he usually has really chill music on while he does it. Alright, we'll raid CNOT. That's cool. It's not mini painting. Oh, David Peterson from Mouse Guard. Oh. Oh, to hit partner. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's big. Yeah, I don't know him. But, yeah, actually, let's do that. Is it twitch.tv/David Peterson, or is it /MouseGuard, or what is it? Big Littered Geek. Because I like MouseGuard. I have one of the books, and I always thought it was a nice little world. I'm a Redwall fan, so Warrior Mice are a hit with me. David Peterson? Alright. Well, let's do that. Since he's doing a drive to hit partner, I totally am with anybody who's trying to get over that hurdle. So let's go raid him for a bit, give him some views and stuffs. I really, like I said, I'm a Redwall fan, so... David... Oh, let me get that down. David Peterson. Yeah! Oh, no problem, Megan. Alrighty, we will go and raid him quick and give him some stuff. And thanks, chat. Here we go. Boom. Raiding, queuing. We're queuing up. Queuing up. Yeah, you guys have a great evening too. All right, raid launching. Go get him. Give him some Reaper and some miniature painting love. Even and he knows what miniatures are, I'm sure. Bye, guys. Have a great one.
He's painting a rabbit. Or not painting, drawing. I think that's a rabbit. Maybe it's a mouse.
Oh, okay. How do I do a link?
Welcome, Raiders. Oh, and thank you about the path to partner. I hope so. I've been able to get everything good except for my numbers, and there are times where I get them up, and get them up well enough that they, you know, if they took a narrower snapshot, would be fine, and then my numbers dwindle again. So I had them really high back in March when I did my first one of these online con streaming events, and then the numbers kind of slowly went back down. So thank you, I appreciate that. I can use all the help I can get with Path to Partner. Shane, I have to admit, I have not read enough Yasagi to be familiar enough to